What is up, y'all? It's your boy Aki coming at you with the My Hero Academia Chapter 312 review. Now, this chapter, as you guys already know, we break these down page by page. So we're starting with the beginning of the chapter. We immediately open up with Hawks having a dialogue with Midoriya while seemingly at a hotel, more than likely, or at least an established building that they've made as a base. And he points out that they need to bring Deku in alive specifically because of the fact that they don't have any ways to preserve quirk factors to do the transplants or anything like that. So they just can't kill Deku and then store his quirk in a vial. They need to make sure they get him while he's alive and absorb it that way, though. So, and the story kind of confirms that as the chapter keeps going. So we immediately find out that specifically the one person that Hawks doesn't want Deku to interact with or fight is someone who he refers to as a former senior colleague of his, and she's the one the chapter is named after, the hired gun herself, Lady Nagant, who is a former hero employed by the Safety Commission. So what we get out of this effectively is that the Hero Commission does go out of their way to foster and raise certain children so that they can have access to this information, or so they can be like assassins and do these roles. So we know that there's a certain group of heroes that exist throughout the story now, whether we've seen them or not, that are in the background that effectively operate as like assassins more than necessarily like the average hero. So Deku gets D&E orders: do not engage, make sure to retreat, flee on sight. And it is revealed that her name is Lady Nagant. Now, specifically, the thing that I like about this detail is that the Nagant rifle is actually a very popular rifle in the Soviet Union and the just in general in the Russian army. It was developed in around 1891 and then had been made for about 80 years. So just a long time. Good range on it, actually. The effective firing range would be around 500 meters or all the way up to around 800 meters. So this is just the fact that she's got a, like potential 3K reach is moreover to do with the fact that it's a quirk. She needs to be a little better than like the average gun. But you get the idea that this is a extremely powerful rifle. It was reliable for military combat for decades. So that's where that comes from. If you remember the Shinrikyo video, I mentioned how that cult got weapons actually supplied to them, actual guns from Russia. So you get the Russian rifle. You have All For One, who's paired with Shigaraki. The cult leaders. They're using a Russian hired gun. Taking on the Russian weapons to take out their enemy in One For All, or in Deku. So that's what that's kind of about. Why she's Lady Nagant, and since she's a gun specialist. Now, Deku is, as he's retreating, we get to see that she actually can make curved bullet shots. It seems that it completely looped around the building, and it hits Deku right in the left arm. And he directly states, a howitzer shot is nothing compared to this. Howitzer shots are also called like high angle, like caliber rounds. So they come, basically, it's just really high caliber bullets. And it's important to note that while many bullets are destructive, and you think of 50 caliber rounds as big bullets, these bullets that she makes, the fact that they're about the size of it looks like the length of a TV remote. This, as a bullet, as a high speed hypersonic projectile, is a way higher caliber than any bullet that we have, that I know of, that you can fire out of a rifle. So this is actually a pretty serious feat, that she's got extreme intense levels of firepower. And since Deku managed to handle two of the bullets, she does commend him for his strength. She obviously doesn't know that he's got the metal braces on to help secure his arms, but that does help. And we get a flashback to a time when Snipe was on a TV special. He basically explained that his cap on his range is 600 meters. He doesn't actually get a lot of firepower, but he can hit anything at 600 meters, and he doesn't even get to really choose exactly where they hit people. So this kind of explains why he doesn't use, like, why he had the revolver with like rubber bullets, and or actually no, he used real bullets and fired them at Shigaraki with no control where they landed, which basically means Shigaraki only lived because he got really lucky. Snipe actually almost killed Shigaraki. If he has no control over, wow, I didn't think about that until just now. Jesus, Snipe. So there you go. Snipe actually was willing to risk Shigaraki's life in that first encounter. No questions asked. Um, but yeah, that that's something you can think about now. And then that's when we found out about like the fact that she makes all kinds of bullets of different sizes. Deku explains that the fourth quirk is working. It's just that the bullets are actually fast enough and destructive enough that is only enough to keep him in the game, not enough to make him not have to deal with the effectiveness of her rifle or their power. So he agrees that he has to like take the fight to her if he wants to escape. We see that Overhaul is just kind of completely out of his mind. So she kind of just took him with her because she decided he might have some use because of his role within the gang. And now she's sitting here wondering if maybe she should ditch him. And then we get the flashback to as she was escaping the prison with him, and All For One approaches her and is like, the treacherous hero, the lovely Lady Nagant. And he's like excited to meet her, and she basically says, there was a time I was gonna shoot you, bro. And he requests that she actually take on a job for him. So now we know for sure that Lady Nagant is tied to All For One, 100%. And he says to her, I expect that a certain UA student will leave school and operate solo. I want you to capture him and bring him here. Now, some people were wondering why All For One would assume that Deku would leave school or be solo, but I actually don't think that that's that surprising. If Deku is staying at UA, then All For One just has to pull up to his school, murder all of his friends, and then take his quirk, and it's that simple. But if Deku was out in hiding, then All For One has to track him down and find him. So instead, what All For One does is he releases a bunch of villains. They get to cover and make it so that people can't investigate them, but they also create a bunch of work for the higher tier villains. All For One assumes that because of the fact that Deku was interning with Endeavor, he's still going to have those connections with high tier superheroes. Under that assumption, that very logical assumption, that Deku is still connected to these high tier superheroes, then it would make sense that if you were noticing a pattern of different superhero like villains being taken out close proximity to them at similar times, so i.e. the jailbreaker scenario, if Deku was in the middle of taking out Muscular about 2 kilometers away from Endeavor, Hawks, and Genus, and then they notice that gets taken care of, and then the giant villains gets taken care of, then it's kind of like, maybe this mobile mystery hero that people don't know that well is the one that we're looking for. And so you kind of narrow it down, you start following the behavioral patterns and like where looking in the areas where Hawks are, and then you eventually, by triangulating off of him, off of All Might or off of Endeavor, you end up being able to figure out the path that Deku's on, and then you go from there. So this is the logic that All For One is taking, that we should be able to find him via his allies by creating enough work that he has to do work too, and we'll be able to track him by the villains he inevitably busts in proximity to the villains that his allies bust. That's the idea. The reason why it's a rainy night is just because as you're running, you're jumping on surfaces, you lose your footing, you lose your ground. It's just in general, it lowers his visibility. It makes it harder for him to see her as she's getting the advantage on him. So he has to be even closer to see her than she has to be to see him when she's already a trained sniper and got the rifle and is going to have scope, all that other stuff. So the idea is to create like the ultimate scenario where Deku doesn't actually want to be on the ground, but instead wants to be in the air. And if he's in the air, he can't hide behind vehicles or things like that. So it allows her to have clear shots with her scope while still putting it in a situation where the non-clear shots don't necessarily help Deku either, because he can't run as safely or as easily on a wet surface. So it's kind of like create an environment for which your opponent can't see you, and then attack from the dark as much as possible until you wear them out. You don't need it very much how All For One ruled from hiding in the shadows. That's what she's supposed to do here. It's the fact that All For One had all these, heroes released. A lot of people were talking about how, like Deku kind of looks like Batman. Deku's kind of structured like Batman. And you can kind of think of this as like when Bane first came after Batman. And Bane had a bunch of villains running loose in the city of Gotham, and they slowly wore Batman down, and then he just finally came in for the kill. And Deku's been running around for weeks now, fighting, looking for All For One, fighting villains, trying to put them into place, keep moving, patrolling, saving, etc. over and over. So he hasn't been getting much sleep. We know this. All Might made it a point to mention that. Now Deku is in a position where he can go ahead and try to move in. But that also means that the bomb that hit off All Might, for all we know, All For One and Shigaraki could be at the vehicle. That could have just been a funny way of them saying hello. And All for One is going to kind of be like, well, you don't have a quirk anymore, so it felt mean if I'd use my quirk against you, All Might. But I still hate you, so I blew you up. You know, that kind of stuff. He's a real petty man. So they reveal, they point out Lady Nagant killed a fellow hero. And All for One mentions that she hates Hero Society and wants to see it crumble. And Lady Nagant calls it those phony hopes. And she calls it like this. So one of the things that I think might have happened is that Lady Nagant, under the orders of the Hero Commission, assassinated a fellow hero. But in the process, the Hero Commission turned on her, and she was, caught up and eventually arrested. And so, in the process of like them betraying her, she just kind of gave up on the situation and was willing to put people down, because it only seems like she killed one hero, and I think that's kind of fishy given the circumstances. But at the end of the day, she's going to be stuck a criminal now for the rest of her life, regardless. So she might as well just go ahead and deal with the hand that she's been dealt. So. And she was already a trained assassin under the Hero Commission anyway, so she might have just been ready to go to prison if it ever came down to that. Now, All for One is like, hey, and like to help get her on his side, he does something really important. And he finally does what we heard him talking about, giving and taking, enforcing his allies, making them stronger. And he gives her the quirk Airwalk so that she can go up and keep flying. Now, the thing that's interesting about this is that I mentioned that the Shinrikyo got a lot of guns from the Russians, but they also at one point did manage to acquire $1 million attack helicopter. Now, if you remember earlier, I was talking about how the output and the range of her rifle is far higher than one of the, the traditional Nagant rifles. But if we're talking about, a helicopter round, then this is a lot more in line. So effectively, she's got like her name is a reference to like the old guns and like that Russian tide, and then like she becomes effectively the equivalent of a living symbol of a Russian attack helicopter that the Shinrikyo acquired when they were planning to plot and rule and take down Japan. So that's like a really cool, fast, last-minute history fact that you get at the end of the video. I really enjoy when Horikoshi weaves this stuff in there, and for those of us who really like to dig in and learn about the series and know what's going on, what he's really talking about, then we get these like nice Easter eggs to really sink our teeth into. So just let me know what you guys thought about this review. Let me know what you guys thought about the chapter. Like I said, I've been enjoying it. Hope you guys are too. It was really action-packed. I enjoyed. Really quick chapter. Not even that long of a review. Should be out pretty quick. You guys have a wonderful day. Anaki out.